No, absolutely. Like, Clem will be playing the Vanguard today as well, but speaking of the other man that we just saw previously, playing for Team Talon in his game StarCraft 2, maybe here as well in the future, who knows? It is Dark.
And his opponent in the bottom left playing for Team France, and of course Team Liquid, it is Clem.
Yeah, I got my Team Liquid shirt on today, you know, representing my boy,
Yeah, man. I mean, what a great pickup Clem has been there. Has really put a big mark in the scene for them. Instrumental in Team Liquid's winning a lot of money last year at the team championships over in Gamers 8 as well. So players won his first big Premier tournament in StarCraft at the end of last year. Oh, that was a almost snipe. He has to emergency throw down a meat farm there just to save the imp, even though it wasn't time to do that. Better than losing the worker though for Dark.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like, these workers work in the same way as drones do from StarCraft and StarCraft 2, where you can actually, when you make a building, you turn them into the building itself. So very similar. And Clem, this game, we see a very different way of approaching it. And this was my first way of approaching it when I started playing this game, where I was like, you know what? I'll like gather as much Luminite as I can, and then go for an expansion as quickly as possible. And this way, you will be less out on the map and be less utilizing the creeps. But as a StarCraft player, this feels very right to just boost your economy straight away in this way. But there's far more avenues to take when it comes to Stormgate in what you can actually do on the map.
Yeah, well, I mean, if this was Warcraft 3, this would be a terrible idea, right? Because then Dark's going to take all the creep camps, he's going to get all the experience, he's going to have a level 4 hero when you're at level 1, and you're like, well, this is bad. Heroes are everything, but you don't have such big rewards. There's no boots of speed for your units on this map, so it feels like, yes, Dark can creep now and get some of that, but his expansion is going to be so far behind, even with some resource camps, getting some fiends up, that obviously does flow into him creeping faster and faster. Clem will just be speeding up that tech tree, up that money a lot faster. And I'm really curious to see how it goes, because Dark was under the gun and under the pressure of a much experienced player the entire game in the last set. This time, he's got more room to breathe, maybe get in his comfort zone, build a little bit more comfort, and we're going to see how powerful infesting these creeps is.
Yeah, so far this very much, like you brought up Warcraft 3, this very much so far looks like a human versus undead, where the human expands as quickly as possible, but then they play like the little kid on the playground, and there's a big kid that you don't know where he's hiding, so you're like staying indoors, and you're like, no, 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 but just letting him creep like crazy. And Dark is actually allowed to play his game thus far. Still doesn't have an expansion going down, but you can see that he's just meandering around the map, getting those resource camps. His units are a little bit lower, but this should definitely say that Dark is definitely doing what he planned on doing, whereas Probe just shut everything down straight away.
You know, it's funny because I kind of liked it when people were hopping in for Next Fest and everyone was able to play Stormgate, and they're like, oh, this is going to be less frustrating than StarCraft, right? Like, I'll hop in like the first game anyone accuses Infernal, there's a dog in their base biting their workers, and they're like, what's happening? What do I do against this annoying dog? And of course, your opponent, no matter what level they are, is try hard microing it, even if they're floating money and not spending it at home, just because they're like, oh, I have a dog attacking imps. I think it is overwhelming if you don't have a lot of experience in the game. You don't really know how to handle those pressures, and we saw, of course, Dark fall quite far behind and just get stuck building way too many units on one base. This time, he's got a bit of a faster expand up. One way you can catch up is trying to build a quicker third and fourth, because you can't speed build it. You see, this expansion's already full of workers for Clem. He's doing such a good job of boosting out his bases. And if Dark wants to compete with that, he should go for 4 base. What we saw in the last series, though, is both games, Dark did the same thing. And that is, I'm going to try and do a massive Therium 2-base timing. And he's already pretty heavily onto Therium, so I think Dark once again might be going fast Magmadons and just trying to make that work. But he's up against a very different build from his opponent. You're going to see these early hedgehogs.
I love how Clem's microing them already, like a little sim marine, you know, proper stutter stepping them even against creeps and what have you. Now Clem's actually moving up to a 3rd base, pretty much as Dark just finished his natural. So I would definitely say that Clem is ahead in a lot of ways. Now, hedgehogs, are they great in straight up fights? I mean, they're not bad, but there are better units, right? They're mainly used for the mobility and what have you. And Clem will have to be careful about this drop on the map from Dark, because this bad boy, if left unopposed, yeah, can definitely get a lot of damage done. And so far, Clem is very good about just making sure that he's got his units in the right places. And Hedgehogs, to get an anti-air shot, it looks like they have to set up to do it. So
Yeah.
Dark looking to just avoid all of that malarkey.
Their anti-air is pretty pleb. It's not great. It's definitely their backup usage, but it's the only thing he has that shoots up right now, so it makes sense that he's doing it. The drop has not been able to actually drop. It's basically been a flying scout this entire time. So it is forcing Clem on the defense, though, but Dark not taking a third, and it feels like Dark, I don't think he has a ton of imps on his expansion yet either. Remember, you can build imps. I believe it's every 17 seconds you get a charge on your shrine to build a new imp. And you start with like 2 extra imps at the start of the game as well as starting with a charge that insta-builds. And even if you miss macro, you can just, bam, build all 3 at once, right? If it's gone to max charges. Whereas if a Vanguard player misses building Bobs, they have to just keep building. It's kind of, you know, Terran versus Zerg in terms of like, if you make macro mistakes, it's a bit more punishing with Vanguard. But you've got speed build, which really helps make up for it. Dark, though, is sitting on 2 base for a very long time. You see, he's made a lot of gaunts here as well. But because he didn't really get to creep all that much of the map, I don't know if it's been all that fantastic. Ooh. And look at this ambush. Oh my god, the Hedgehog ambush almost got the Doombringer. That was a cute move.
There is an upgrade as well for these Hedgehogs, where I think they can become better at dealing with the air, but that Doombringer does make it all the way home here. And you see, back on the Shroud will generate, or regenerate that shield, rather. So we'll be rearing to go in the near future, and Clem just making sure that, hey, you haven't got this cheeky base over here, have you? With that scout over there, so still utilizing it, and he's taken his 4th base here as well. Like Clem, his eco's left totally untouched, and he's looking real sharp here, even getting a bit of a brew there on the front door, I believe.
Yeah, pulls the Hedgehog back just in time to get out of there. I think it's, oh no, it looks like, yeah, I think they're the same move speed, but he does turn it around and will lose that Hedgehog. Dark is getting massively out macro. He's going Hellborn as well. Okay. I think we are starting to learn that Dark is brand spanking new. Gotta call it the way I see it here, DeMuslim. Two base Hellborn is not it. It's I'm trying to think of analogies from other games.
2 base Ultra. I mean,
yeah, 2 base Ultra. Maybe not Ultra, because Ultra is actually a good fighting unit. It's got to be something that's like 2 base. It's like Tempest. But like, you know, there are specific Tempest builds, maybe Tempest. Mate, is there like a 1 base mass flying gnomish flying machine build from Warcraft 3? That sounds like it might be a similar one in that you're like, this on its own doesn't do that much.
Yeah, mass flying machines. I mean, there was a time that it kind of worked, I guess, but yeah, most of the time, no, it doesn't. No, I'm kind of feeling where you are. It's like skipping bio, skipping mech, and going like 1 base mass Raven. Although I say that, and it's like, okay, that sort of has a place as well, I guess. But no. I mean, yeah, Dark's definitely not playing the most optimal way, because everything that I've heard about this game so far, Pig, it's Infernals are great. They make Vanguard look kind of bad in return. But what we're seeing today is completely the opposite. So maybe our Vanguard players are just bringing it in very different ways.
Pretty cool, though, to see that we do have Clem, you know, of course, playing Vanguard and as well as Probe, and already getting a few more of those players into that top bracket to even out the numbers would be great. Bit of a Hellborn move out here for Dark, but just the 4 out of 12 on that expansion is what makes me kind of go, oh, his economy is so low. You know, his economy is so very low. He's got a crazy amount of Ethereum mining, but it's just, there's only so much raw material you can build if you've got everything on the Ethereum rather than the Luminite. So he's basically just going all Ethereum, you know, none of that core resource, and yet he takes a 3rd. Dark is absolutely bananas. This is insane. This build makes no sense at all. I'm being a little harsh, but Dark is clearly very new, man.
I mean, you're allowed to be harsh. You're absolutely allowed to be, because apparently he's played like a good 13 or so games on his account, maybe a ladder, and maybe he was as unfortunate as me as well that he lost to Loco. Because, yeah, that was definitely one of the low lights of my career for sure. So he's got a lot of heavy tech units here. Very low economy. 16 workers on Ethereum and 5 on Luminite. That's, yeah, it's bonkers, Pig. It's bonkers. And Clem, he went for this fast Hedgehog build and went into bio again afterwards. So his build's a bit crazy as well. But, hey, I like where this is going for Clem so far.
It feels like Clem's kind of just getting a feel for it. Like, this is one of those things you see in very top-tier RTS players where they sense what their opponent's goal is. You know, you see a small thing they're doing, where you're like, oh, he's being a bit more defensive than players normally are. And you just reactively, instinctively go super greedy. That's what Clem has done in this game. He does not need to attack at all. He's 5 base against barely 3 bases, but he's still poking around and acting like he's the one doing the big scary attack. Now, obviously, you don't want to wait too long because Dark is building a great late-game composition of like Hellborns, Magmadons, multiple Doombringers there. The thing is, it's just going to take him so long to max out. Clem probably has about 8 to 10 minutes, I would say, before Dark's army reaches a supply where it scales to that point where it truly is like next level scary. All the early lead Clem has doesn't mean anything if you both hit, you know, your max supply, and he's got a better army than you, right? But right now, Clem's got a mobile, scary force. And I think against this very static kind of Hellborn Siege style army, he could split up and attack multiple angles. Maybe drops for Clem would be great. Or if he can just lure Dark into the open even once and surround him, he's going to be great. Dark, on the other hand, he wants to focus fire his Hellborn on the Exos, the guys with the guns. They're fragile, they clump up a lot, they'll take massive splash damage. And remember, the fireballs do splash exactly the way it looks. Hits the target and then does a cone of splash damage behind the target it hits. If he can hit those guys, that'll be big, but he's got a target fire.
I mean, I tell you what, Pig, these big Hellborns over here, so many. He has so many of those big bad lads, and they do a lot of AoE damage. I mean, Clem, what does he really have to work on here? Like, I can imagine one of the dream scenarios is getting some Atlases out, maybe getting the dropships for them as well, just making sure that he can do something, but that is a surprising number of those big heavy tech units, and wow, he's real hunkering on down here.
Yeah, this is like the Dark who would try to just make Lurker Viper and just camp until his opponent goes crazy in ZVZ sometimes. It's kind of cool to see him mixing it in. Air swap would be great. I'm pretty sure Hellborn don't attack air. It is one of the newer units, so maybe someone will correct me if I'm wrong on that, no doubt. But there's not much anti-air right now, and I don't even know if he has the ability to build that many Shadow Flyers, which is like a Scourge from StarCraft 1 essentially, reactively. So air swap is an option. The other thing you can do, like you said, Atlases with evacs. So those are kind of the siege tank type unit. They slightly outrange the Hellborn. Very similar range on both sides, and you kind of need vision to actually outrange them. But then it'll just be like, oh, I have siege units, you have siege units. And I think the Atlases will slightly win that fight, but I haven't really seen too many of the battles to know exactly how that fight goes.
No, I just know that these units, the Hellborns, aren't exactly speedy. So if you can land anything on them, it definitely can help a lot. But Dark is trying to get some dropship action going along, and he's got a big trample boy here that definitely slowed down Clem a little bit, but I feel like Dark, every time he pokes Clem to see how big he's growing and how big his army is, it just kind of makes you go like, whoa, no wonder I'm sat back at home, you know? And yeah, he's proper lurkering on down, isn't he? This is just like his StarCraft 2 style when he's a little bit behind.
Yeah, I'd like to see Clem just split his army in half. Half goes to the top left, kills that fourth for 3. Other half goes to the bottom right, and then when Dark's army moves to the top left, the other half, the army of Clem, just dives in the right side base, blows up the static defense. Kind of just do that split multi-prong. You've got a lower tier mobility focused army. Dark has he's got his meat farm wall-off mass Hellborn army. He's trying to squeeze it around the wall-off. Oh man, he might want to get rid of one of those meat farms, or he's just going to bug his units out. Those are some chunkers, guys. These guys do not know the meaning of diet. They are not going to get in and out of these walls very easily.
Yeah, that feeling when it takes your army a full minute to get outside. Also, his army, like, I can't believe how many chunky boys it is. It's, you got the freaking Hellborn on the back line. I tell you what, though, Clem cannot
It's a bad spot for Clem.
Yeah, Clem cannot charge into that at all. And Dark finally getting to where he wanted to be. And yeah, he feels it's go time. And Clem doesn't have an answer to this.
He's got to get a bit of a surround. Clem needs to spread more than this if possible. He's like dangerously clumped right now. And if Dark can lure him into the choke point, this could go well for Dark.
Yeah, and he's got those siege tanks, the Atlas, out on the map now. And they do have an upgrade where they can put an AoE on the ground that deals damage over time as well. And you can see that they are enough to send Dark packing.
They are. That one Hellborn shot was scary on those Exos, though. I really feel like just... This reminds me of don't do this at home, kids. It's like when you see Clem microing against disruptors, where he's just like, oh yeah, I'll just walk right up to the edge of the shot, and like there's a shot chasing him and he turns around and runs towards it because he knows the pixel is barely going to miss his units, and then he can run in and punish it. That's what he's doing right now. any sane Vanguard player would split their army off and try to surround them or flank. Clem is relying on his instincts and his insane speed to dodge these shots and just kind of not get too in range. But it's incredibly dangerous because it's so many Hellborn.
Yeah, I like Clem, technically, like perfect world scenario. Dark cannot truly charge through here, just like Clem cannot charge through here either. Like, if he does start getting some dropships out and start utilizing the mobility of his army, because it can be fast, it really can. But this is getting to a point where Dark, I think he's got less supply in the workers, but those Atlas shots, those are big over here.
Oh, he's exposed. Clem doesn't pounce, though. Clem's still looking to focus on the big frontal army. I mean, Clem's army is still definitely bigger. Dark needs like another minute to really properly catch up.
Yeah, like, Clem is very fortunate. Oh, I mean, that's a great position for Dark to start shooting at from the high ground here. And Clem, I tell you what, Dark can actually shoot from the low ground as well over here. But Atlas are getting very forward, and chaos is going to ensue.
Nothing to deal with the Lancers right here, Ben. They're just jumping on top, and the Exo's behind it. There's just no front line. It's pure Hellborn, and it looks scary. But you've got to realize there's just no Weavers to back it up. No tanky boys up front. Nothing to take the brunt, and you can see how quickly those Hellborn crumble. They are a massive investment of cost, but they need other units supporting them. The Flayed Dragon comes out, that's 400 Animus and a ton of resources. It can infest areas in an area, infest units in an area, and then suck that infest up to heal itself. It does good damage, but it is a one-man. And unlike, superheroes out there, that dragon is not going to hold this 200 supply army.
No, I mean, this is a massive army from Clem. It features nearly everything that Vanguard has, doesn't it? So many Atlas on this low ground, just sieging on here, and Dark's army is disappearing, along with this work account as well. Exo's on the front line, they're getting healed. He even was using that bubble ability. Does the bubble ability heal your mech units around it, or how does that work?
So there is a top bar shield, which you can use once you get to tier 2 as Clem, a blue shield, which blocks 1,000 damage for up to 10 seconds on a single unit. And then there's the green bubble, the glowing bubble, which basically is the medtech putting nanoswarm on mechanical units, and it heals nearby other mechanical units. It doesn't heal bio, but they also have their just small little green healing, which also goes on those bio units as well from the medtech. I didn't notice a sentinel in there, which does the actual bubble, which is what I would refer to that. So the I think it's actually called something bubble, which is basically like a big 50% damage reduction sort of guardian shield ability, and that comes from the sentinel, which is the science vessel / fairy dragon is what I refer to it as when I didn't know its unit's name before, when we saw pictures of it. So that one, I don't think we saw that in that game, but I think you were just talking about like the green sort of one, right?
No, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I was just seeing these big green bubbles around units popping up, and I'm like, I think I read about that, where it heals your mech units and not your bio units. But Clem had a real good mix of stuff there, didn't he? And those Lancers, you can really see, like, this game feels like it's got a lot more hard counter-esque going on in it when it comes to which units do what, as opposed to, like, if you see your opponent making an army, and you're making an army, there's going to be counters that you can make where it's like you can't come up with the same army in game, or rather game in, game out kind of thing, which is very nice to see. And Clem, he just got around to making a way bigger army than his opponent, and it looked damn strong, honestly.
Heck yeah, dude. It's kind of fun because these are very different games to what we saw in the other qualifiers, where like, because we've got these players who haven't played as much but are still insanely talented. Like, we saw the insane macro of Clem in that game, was just like, what? He's skilled. On the other hand, we also see the builds are nowhere near as like refined and stuff, and the meta isn't quite there. It's more of like players figuring things out and using their high skill to adapt under pressure. In the qualifiers, it was like, oh, this guy's doing this build and he's trying to counter it with this, and there was a lot more of that like meta game of players who've been grinding the ladder. But so far here, Clem and Dark is a bit of a fresh one. It's going to be interesting to see. I want to see Dark massively change it up, because so far we have just not seen him show any RTS fundamentals that you would expect from a god of StarCraft 2 in terms of like build a big economy and then do a thing. For him, he's really focused on specific tech-heavy, Ethereum-heavy units and getting an advantage with it. Hasn't worked out for him so far, but maybe here in Game 2 on, of course, everyone's favorite map. I believe this one is Jagged Moor, controversial map that we're going to be going into here. In the top right, we've got Clem. In the bottom right, we've got Dark. And this is the map with the siege camps and a massive push path, except for, of course, the narrow path where there's some trees, which only small units can move through.
Yeah, I mean, this map, I remember when this got shown on Twitter, and I was like, this to me screams scrap station in a lot of ways, right? Like, you've got to go around this long way around the map by ground, but there's going to be bits where you can break through in the middle, I believe, to make it a little bit shorter, or even using air to just completely bypass everything. And what are these massive red spots on the map here, Piggy?
Oh, I think you'd like those, Ben. Those are siege camps, mate. They're very strong creep camp, but if you kill them, you get a catapult that looks exactly like a catapult straight out of Warcraft 1. It is definitely a placeholder graphic, I would say. It's fantastic. It's a big bright red catapult, and it'll auto push your opponent's base. Kind of turns this map into a Dota game. You're like, oh, quick, we've got a mega creep wave. Let's go with it, you know? So you kind of try to push with that. It's similar to an Atlas in strength. So it can outrange static defense and siege through players. So if you're playing at someone who does like a greedy economic build and is relying on sentry posts or something, you get one of those with your army, and it's actually fantastic for timing pushes.
Yeah, I mean, it already looks very interesting to me. Like, I'm looking at it, there's a lot of Luminite deposits knocking around here, lots of green deposits as well for that Therium. And right now,
the double patches, it's kind of a weird map like that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely can boost a certain economy. And hey, if you're dark and you're like, oh my goodness, 2 greens in one spot, he's going to go for it, isn't he?
I've got to imagine you're right. I mean, the thing is, I feel like having the ability to build the scrapyard, the Therium drop-off point, which Vanguard has and Infernal doesn't, is a big advantage on this map because the double green patch is kind of off on its own, and you don't really want to build a shrine just for that. But then, obviously, you have to if you're going tech-heavy as Dark. On the other hand, we've heard a lot about, you know, things doing just fine, as that Bob does pull off things doing fine for Infernals on this map. Bobs can repair the dogs. That's what Clem was doing there. And we're going to see Dark is already pushing right across the map. What is this? I guess he knows it's CP first. He just wants to put on some pressure and then maybe steal the camps on the enemy side of the map. It's a very early pressure from Dark.
It's very quick, isn't it? And I mean, if there's one thing that I've looked at from Clem's build, it's that he doesn't have that many battle units out very quickly. And Dark, you know, he walked all the way over here and it's like, I'm nabbing your resource camp, matey, which is definitely a play. But, I mean, maybe he could have dealt a little bit of damage quicker, although with Vanguard's ability to just boost their workers and getting so much armor and value out of them.
They use steroid overcharge and they kill everything. The Bobs are actually an insanely powerful fighting unit when they've got the overcharge. Notice how he doesn't even trigger it though, because Clem's like, yeah, this is not really that scary an attack. I can just defend with this Lancer. And he's already got a Hedgehog out as well. Hedgehogs do bonus to heavy units, so they're good at picking off the brutes. And they are so microable that they're really fantastic. This is also just a crazy attack to be doing for Dark because it's the longest rush distance in the entire map pool. Similar to how he did a timing push on Probe on one of the longer maps. So Dark hasn't been picking his builds for the maps too well. Makes sense. Someone who hasn't got that much experience on the maps. But actually killing a few of these units quite nicely and getting those Fiends getting good damage. In low numbers, the Fiends don't take a lot of splash from the Lancers and they actually do okay as that Hedgehog gets chased to the main. He's going to pull some Bobs to try and repair it. And it looks like it should barely survive.
I mean, this is just cool, and I mean, you know, you're questioning Dark on his like choice to do this on the longest rush distance map, but I'll have you know that he was voted the highest strategic mind over at StarCraft 2 Katowice, which still a lot of players also were like, what the hell? But no, I mean, very cool to see the Hedgehogs used here. Like Probe was very much about getting out those scouts, the dogs, in time, whereas Clem, totally different approach, and he handled that pretty damn nicely, actually.
Yeah. For those who don't know Dark from StarCraft, he is one of the most consistent players whilst playing like an absolute mad lad. He kind of just does random things sometimes and just kills people with killer instincts. He makes some of the best comebacks in StarCraft. He has so many years of making what we often refer to as disgusting comebacks because it feels like he should be dead and he just finds a way back into it. So he's very creative. He's one of the most clutch players in basically all of RTS. Clem, on the other hand, very solid, fantastic multitasking, micro. He's got great macro. His speed is pretty much the best in the world of any RTS player we've ever seen. Maybe Raynor being the only one we could say is up there with him. But the drop comes in, does get a Bob or two. You know, not a bad drop for Dark. Finds some damage. What I really want to see though is that third base going down, like the moment this is moving across the map. And even on the mini-map, I can see he's got very few imps on his expansion. And this is something where you really want to be saturating that Luminite immediately. But instead, he's building a third on the double green. You called it, Ben!
I knew it. I knew it. He is a man that loves his heavy tech, doesn't he? And I'm actually far happier with how Dark's playing this game, even with that rush at the start, because this dropship is doing what you very much fear as a Vanguard player. And look, you see it just disrupting the flow of that Luminite, very, very hardcore, and he's actually getting expansions up behind it. And Clem, he wanted to be left alone. He wanted to be killing the siege camp very quickly. We saw that with the hedgehogs, and it's totally been stumped.
Yeah, nicely done here. He did lose 2 gaunts in the drop, but he's still got, I think, 2 gaunts and 2 brutes. So it's still got the main damage in the brutes, the infestability of the gaunts, their bounce, of course, very good for spreading that infest as well. Going to find the third base of Clem. So Clem definitely under a lot more pressure, as you pointed out this time. And the drop did get deflected from there, but just forcing the bobs to pull away every time is fantastic. And Clem now starting his transition into a little bit more Therium, building some sentry posts. And Dark, of course, no doubt about to send a ton of imps over to that third base in the near future. He's on 11 out of 12 in his main. You do want to get 12 out of 12, though the first 10, I think, are the most efficient. And I do think Dark's expansion is natural. Second base is also looking a bit healthier. So he's definitely got a little bit of a better base for his economy, but he needs to keep working on that. As Clem is now going to start taking those siege camps, preparing to get a big push going potentially.
I like the fact that the siege camp pig is 2 giant chickens and 2 rocket deers with very strange heads, you know? Like, it definitely surprised me a little bit when I was playing yesterday, and I was like, what the hell? I keep pulling my units away, and yeah, the deer keeps on rocketing them. And
the deer does not headbutt you. It shoots rockets. There's like laser mooses and stuff. I like that they were like, okay, how do we make sure people know these are placeholder, kind of like temporary green images? They're like, chickens with Viking helmets, let's go.
And yeah, that tank is on its way now. And Dark, he has a pretty decent army to maybe take this on as well, but I feel like, I mean, those chickens and those deer definitely deal quite a bit of damage. It's not going to be super easy for him to deal with that. And Clem, again, going for this kind of hedgehog-esque army here, which very mobile, but again, very long distance around the map to really sort things out. And what happens when 2 of these siege things go at it against one another? Oh, big-ass shot over there.
Yeah. That's going to be fun, man. It's going to be fun. The catapults do kind of get very funny when they're both fighting high ground, low ground. They usually trade out with each other. And do kind of counter each other that way. This is going to be interesting. Clem, I don't think this is a super committed push for him. And once again, Dark is massing Hellboy. This man is obsessed. You know what? Infernal players only think about one thing, and it's disgusting, Ben.
I mean, I'm even though they pack a massive punch, these Lancers, if they do run and get on top, it's definitely going to be brutal. And Dark does have his siege engine stay alive here with this little bit of Hellborn support over here. Definitely an unusual game, and yet again, and I do wonder what Clem's going to be piling out here, because he's got a lot of barracks online, but Dark definitely getting a more of a feel for it, and you can definitely tell that this map has been more to his liking with his playstyle as well.
Indeed. I feel like if Dark could just take that double Luminite base and secure that, his turtling on Hellborn style is great, but for now he's going to go for another drop in the main, undefended right now. Oh, he doesn't unload it. He hasn't queued it to unload. Both players not watching right now. They are distracted by other things going on.
They do drop, and is that a Hellborn in the mix? I mean, I saw the trample boy. Yeah.
Magmadon is, if you get 2 Magmadons and they're not looking, they will trample and kill the whole bob line so quickly. So it is actually one of the scarier kind of drops that you add in there, especially if you one Magmadon and a few, you know, gaunts for infest is like, bam, man. Juicy if you get that landed. Dark once again with his well, this is going to become like a famous meme economy, you know. He's got so many. I think he's got about 30 imps mining Therium at this point, maybe at least 20. Basically as many as he's got mining Luminite, and he's not interested in a third base. He's interested in just massing units, taking these camps. Looks like Dark will take the speed camp on the left side of the map, the only speed camp on this map indeed. And yeah, he's just going to kind of keep roaming, getting some creeps. I don't think you can really force fight with this army because you've got so little meat to protect. Essentially, it's Hellborn, and what have you got protecting that? Fiends are worthless. They'll just disappear in a big fight. The Gaunts also will get jumped on by the Lancers. He's got 1 or 2 Magmadons. It is basically a few pieces of artillery, And I don't know if you know much about Modern Warfare, but if you're rolling howitzers onto the front line, things aren't going to go too well.
Clem, he is having to defend over here, and those Hellborn are actually doing what they're very good at here, which is getting some splash on these workers. Even a big AoE blodge there, but Clem does move out of it, dodges it very nicely. But taking out this army from just one angle is a little bit tricky, but you see...
He's got to run. Good pullback by Dark, though, because like if he gets flanked, he's screwed. But if he pulls back before the flank happens, that's a really good move.
Absolutely, and yeah, Clem was getting ready to wrap around that, and still that little fiend over there dealing a little bit of damage, being a nuisance, and Dark, he's definitely taking better fights this game for his army, but he has to be so careful here, Piggy, because this army from Clem, and this is what I was worried about, yeah, it's real damn fast.
The Lancers are so buffed up for that buff as they took the damage there at the start. Look how fast they move and attack. Lancers get on crack as they take damage, man. They're so tanky, and every time they take that damage, they get a temporary buff, movement speed, and attack speed, and they are blasting their way through. Honestly, I think Clem already did good killing some Hellborn. He second-guessed himself. He was like, oh, let's pull back. He turns around, keeps attacking. The Lancers just will not go down, man.
Oh, they're all so red here. Like, Dark must be like, why aren't these things dying? And look at Clem's army, just hunts him down. Now he's got some medics in the back as well, which can absolutely get some good healing going on here. And Dark's army got absolutely wiped out, but Dark would not be Dark if he didn't have, I'm gonna guess, a good 7 more Hellborn back at base. I'm gonna say something ridiculous. All right, there's a few. Getting a bit of a meat shield for them as well. And oh my goodness, that's so much Ethereum that he's just absolutely mining out here.
Yeah, his main base has actually run out of patches, so he really needs to transfer off that main base Ethereum, because basically if you leave 5 workers on a Ethereum patch, it will constantly just stay at the same level that it's at, right? So if there's a lot that's already popped out, you can put a few extra on, slowly eat through the excess of Ethereum. But he's got 12 on a Ethereum patch that has nothing on it left in his main, so essentially only like, you know, a couple of those are mining effectively, and the rest are kind of just hanging out. So something that Dark needs to fix as his third base, which is a double Luminite base, does start getting up and mining. Clem, though, is already ready to push again. He's breaking those rocks, which much like trees, you can mine down with your workers, taking a siege camp, and he might even take the other siege camp and do a double catapult push, which would be beautiful.
It would be, and now he's got a far more direct way of getting through the middle, right? And that siege engine, does it go through this middle with this army? I'm kind of excited to see, because that's quite a lot of AoE firepower in the mix as well. And yeah, he's just going to go marching through. And from this attack angle, I can't imagine Dark was super ready. I say that, though. It's a lot of Hellborns at the top of this ramp again.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that... There's not a lot of Exos. There's a lot of Lancers, though. And a bunch of imps just rallied through that fight, and they're actually distracting a few of the attacks, which is kind of nice. The Lancers try to run in, and they are getting on top of the Hellborn. Some of them are going down. It's an awkward spot to fight, though, for Clem. And it feels like this time, with all those meat farms, the Fellhog spawning, the Magmadon that he kind of moved his whole army into, if there's any time to defend, this would be it for Dark. But the numbers are there for Clem. And the units, you know, it looks always like there's way more Infernal because the units are so big, but just because the units are small doesn't mean they're not valuable for Clem, right? Especially with the upgrades he's got and everything like that. The big green bubble there, the Nanoswarm, only works on mechanical units, so it doesn't really heal any of those units that he put it on. Normally, you just want to use the auto-cast heal on the medtechs on your infantry, and then you can use the infusion, the speed boost as well, which gives them that kind of crazy temporary speed boost. That will heal the Atlases, of course. So the big green bubble going on the Atlases is fantastic, because remember, the unit it's on gets healed, but also the units adjacent to it. Previous version of the game, that's stacked. So as you can imagine, Ben, if you get a bunch of the big Vulcan mechs or the Atlases in a big clump and they all have one on them, they're all like stacking the healing, and it was just unkillable. It was a very fun, special time to be a Vanguard player.
I remember there was one very brief moment in StarCraft 2 where they made Medevac heal stack as well, and it was gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous and filthy at the same time. But yeah, both of them are absolutely ramping up this game. Dark, very healthy here with Illuminite here on that double base. Clem on the other side of things, absolutely the same. And this game, you can really tell that Clem isn't massively just out-ecoing his opponent this time. Dark's very much been more in his element here, getting out these massive tech units, and also given that the only real way to attack at the moment has been around the edge of the map, but Clem went through the middle here. It's been far more defensively set up for him.
Yeah, it's interesting because normally it's the Infernal player dropping, but we haven't seen as much of that in the last few minutes. Like, Clem has been much more frontally focused with his army and using it kind of just as a big mobile ball. But I do think, especially as maps evolve, I mean, this map's just also not the best for doing like run-bys and stuff, but we have seen a lot of one directional fighting. Whereas if you watch like Parting, the best player in the game right now, there's a lot more multi-prong usually. But these guys, especially on this map, it's unsurprising to see them locked in a frontal struggle, right? The siege unit's facing off now. Got 6 Atlases getting on that front line. Hellborn's starting to skirmish with them. I don't know who wins this fight. Atlases, I think, do a little more damage, but the splash damage does, of course, work on both sides. And a couple of Hellborn get popped. One of the Atlases goes down. Ooh. The Nano Swarm's really good. That is a Weaver coming out, pulling one of those Atlases to the high ground and punching it to death.
Absolutely, and those Atlas are punching out a lot of damage there from the low ground. And you can really tell that when they go up against Hellborns, they do a good job, given those Hellborns don't move and shoot very easily, and they don't move very quickly at all. And Clem, my goodness, coming out with a flank, and who's flanking who? I mean, this Dragon's doing good damage over here. Some tramplers over to the far left as well, and I don't know, is Dark going to be able to hold this? More healing units than actual damage units here, but holy cow, that Atlas count is growing massively.
Medtechs have a very small attack that can attack air as well, so it's funny to watch them all trying to attack the Flayed Dragon. It's like having a pack of Arbiters attacking a battlecruiser in StarCraft 1. It's comical how little damage they do. And actually, this is a good flank for Dark right now. This is really cool. His Flayed Dragon's coming in clutch. He's taking out a lot of these units. The Brute's reinforcing in. He's taking out all the Atlases. There's just a few Medtechs, a few Lancers left. I think Clem's going to need to disengage from this position because he just doesn't have enough anti-air to kill the Flayed Dragon.
No, absolutely not. That's been a true MVP, hasn't it? And Clem trying to get away here, has been expanding more behind it, and yet again. But what's he going to come up with his next army? Because Dark, he held, man, and he's got more resources on his side of the map to still mine out by the looks of it. I think he's having a far better game here, far better showing.
Yeah, definitely doing way better this time around on the big long rush distance map. Also the one where we put pressure on at the start. You can see actually having extra Luminite mines nicely filled up. And because it's split map, those Luminite bases will mine out soon. Interestingly, Clem's main base hasn't mined out yet. And that either means Clem has messed up his mining in his main on his Luminite, or something weird has happened. I don't know exactly what, but it's weird to see, you know, Dark's one fully mined out and his one's still going. We'll keep an eye on the expansions and see if that kind of holds true for the others as well. Because I thought Clem expanded a bit faster than him. You'd expect Clem's second and third base to mine out earlier.
Yeah, he definitely has expanded faster. You got to remember that Dark was the one doing those drops and stuff. And on a map like this, Clem just hasn't been able to really get into the main base with anything, right? He's been very, evasive of using any sort of drop mechanic here. And he's also been very much, even though he's been the one pushing, he's not been going for that right base, the forward right base, which I'm a bit surprised about because I feel if he cuts that dead through here, because he can go through there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you, Ben. I think that would be a killer move. Keeps attacking through this other side. We'll kind of see what goes on here, though. Where are all those Hellborn? Oh, did he just accidentally infest the ground there? Accidental ability usage for Dark on his own base there. Now he uses the Shroud Stone that he meant to call in. He's not saving Animus for a second Flayed Dragon. He's just spamming it out right now. Hellborn are creating a firing line, but his meat shield is almost completely gone. The Flayed Dragon gets popped. I think Dark maybe should have used the Hellborn to kite a little bit more and then gone in with his little guys. It's a bit of a trade, but I think if Clem can get those Atlases back, it's better for him.
Absolutely, and the Hellborn are getting popped by those Atlas as well. You can really tell that he's utilizing those to really fire that back line.
Oof.
Hellborn from the high ground, though, able to get some good shots in here.
Atlas is answering, though, and you can see that the Atlas damage is crazy. No energy for any more Nano Swarms, though, so one of the Atlases does go down. Imps are flaming on. Remember, when the Imps flame on, that's the workers. They basically suicide. They light a fuse, and they will detonate after 4 seconds if you don't manually get them to blow up on something. So if the enemy just runs away or shoots them down in time, it is, of course, a big cost throwing away workers for that. But it looks like he's done it. Clem just breaking through here in these engagements. He's had an economic advantage, and Dark not quite able to hold his own against Clem's macro. Ooh.
Pretty nice game, honestly, from these two, eh?
Incredible game. Good casting on that, lads. Wow. I think, first of all, considering we just saw back-to-back Darks, how are we feeling about the progress? I think, yeah, obviously Clem came in looking like an absolute baller, but like Pig, from what we saw at the start of this, I know Dark has a little bit of a fetish for Hellborns, but are we starting to get the feeling that he's starting to find his stride, right? Like, do we use this first series, second series indicator of what's to come, or do we think that Dark can start to get some points on the board later?
I think Dark is probably looking like one of the weaker players in the group right now. It's a cool style, and like the fact is, he did make some of those fights look pretty competitive. His drop micro was good. His micro with like moving it around, being annoying was great. But I think it's going to be hard if he can't get some momentum early. Like I feel for Dark, if he's just microing and he's like using that control, he could make it work. But I think he's got to find a way to get some early pressure off or something like that.